would 100% recommend signing up to an incubation program if you are looking to start a new business. From the six-figure cost saving that we've realized through the AWS partnership perks, to the unique perspective that our entrepreneur in residence gives us, we would not be where we are right now if it weren't for SETsquared.
Without the incubator, I don't think we would have launched our first product as yet. There are so many unknown unknowns as you go through this process. There are so many pitfalls you just can't recognise before you get there. And being part of the incubator allows you to identify those before they happen.
There's so many questions a startup has to answer, and having a program, an accelerated program like this, enables you to work through those in a structured manner, and that's really, really important.
They've been invaluable in helping us to understand the standard that our technical documentation and pitch decks, etc., need to be at in order for us to raise the investment that we need.
Hello, everybody. I want to say a big welcome to everybody on the call. Thank you for coming to find out more about SETsquared Bristol and the incubator here and how we support founders and why potentially we are the best place to support you on your journey. So I'm Rick Chapman. I'm one of the entrepreneurs in residence here at SETsquared Bristol. I've been in this role for 11 years. I'll do a rundown of the overall program and what is included, and we'll hear then from another of our entrepreneurs in residence, Annalisa, who provides invaluable support and coaching to our businesses. And then we'll have a talk from one of our alumni companies, Alex from Optect. And he'll provide his insights on his experiences going through the incubator, being within the program. And finally, there will be time for questions and answers. I'm sure you'll all have lots of questions, so start putting those in the chat window for us as well. Right, so I'm sorry, I'm just struggling a little with the technology. Here we go. So we're SETsquared Bristol. We're an inclusive tech incubator that supports the growth and the development of global tech businesses. We're a university-backed incubator, which allows us to have strong links to the academic community, to engage with the technology and the talent pipeline coming from the University of Bristol. However, what we do at SETsquared Bristol sits within a commercial setting, and that allows us to focus on the specific founder needs. Now, the businesses and the founders that we support aren't all from the University of Bristol. In fact, only 35% have a connection to the university, and the others come from further afield. Essentially, we support founders from any background, as long as they are wanting to create or develop a high-growth, high-tech company. Our Bristol incubator is one of 6 connected business incubators within the SETsquared partnership, and that includes Bath, Cardiff, Exeter, Southampton, and Surrey. And although we run independently from the other centres, we are connected within that network, which allows our members to access a broader peer, mentor, and investor network. And finally, our home is the Engine Shed Bristol. That's near Temple Meads. And although our members don't need to be based within the building, you do get access to the lounge space as part of your membership. And you can also choose to take up office space on site so that you can benefit from being embedded in the enterprise hub. So that's a bit more about who SETsquared Bristol is, but you're probably thinking, why should you engage with us over other programs? Well, here are a few numbers. Over the last 5 years, the biggest one that I'd like to draw your attention to is our survival rate. 90% of companies that have been through SETsquared survive for 5 years or more, and that's compared to a national average of 50%. As you can see from the investments raised, the turnover made, and the number of jobs created, the businesses we have supported have had significant impact into the wider economy, with £500 million gross value add in economic impact. In the last year alone, we've supported 85 companies. Those companies have raised over 33 million of investment. They've generated 20 million of revenue and created 150 jobs. For us, the most important thing is the influence our businesses have made into society, with companies providing real-world impact to real people. Let's look at some of the companies within the scheme. They're all at different stages. They come to us with different types of expertise. Some are new founders, some are repeat founders. Some may be academics looking to go into business. Some may be business people looking to learn new technology. Regardless, they come to us to find the home for their business and to surround themselves with like-minded supporters, founders, and other businesses who can help them achieve their goals. To pick out a few, Neighbourly is an award-winning giving platform which works with corporates to link in volunteer time, product surplus and cash donations to the community organisations and charities who need support. This technology platform has enabled £22 million to go into the right hands and has also ensured that 125 million meals have found it to the plates of those within our society who really need it most. Let Us Grow have a vertical aeroponic farming solution to reduce pressure on the farming sector and to enable the growth of more food. They've recently launched a farming project to work with prisons to rehabilitate and re-educate prisoners so that they are fit for work in that sector when they leave prison. You can also see Optect on there, and Alex will be talking more about his business and his experience of SETsquared shortly. Although we do support businesses, we are actually very founder focused and work with our founders to understand their needs. At the center of this picture is Joyanne, the winner of the best pitch at Techspo 2022, which is our annual showcase for our members. Joyanne is the founder of Include AI, which helps marketeers connect with their audience by spotting and removing unconscious biases in digital content. So you can see that for us, the tech for good element is also really strong and something we try and encourage and enable our businesses to consider during the program. But ultimately, we are here to help the founders succeed. So what is our program and how are we different? Well, our full program is bespoke. We work with founders based on their business needs to ensure that they get the support required when it's needed. This means that we don't run a fixed program. We encourage our founders to choose their own path and make use of the resources available as and when they need them. I mentioned earlier that we are an inclusive incubator, and this really means that we are tech agnostic, but we also support the inclusion of all founders. We have created bespoke programs to support more women and more minority ethnic founders into our incubator. And this year, we're looking at other initiatives to support more diversity across all of our programs. We are open to anyone from anywhere, although companies will likely get more value from the program if they are able to be based in Bristol or can easily attend our Bristol-based activities when they join. We can also facilitate visa sponsorship for any of our entrepreneurs who need it. I've shown our impact already, but there's a couple more things to pick up on here. Our team is constantly driving to improve our offer to our members to ensure that they have all of the resources that they need in order to succeed. As an overview of the program, we have 5 core topics: your product, your organization, your market, your funding, and crucially, right at the center, the development of the founder themselves. And this support comes in a number of different ways. To start, there's our community events to meet with peers or potential partners to enable you to broaden your network and find potential advisors, mentors, customers, and even investors. We have over 500 people in a provider and mentor network, and this is growing all the time. So our events help us to connect you with the people you need to meet going forward. Our forums are a way to bring together a group of peers to discuss around specific themes. For example, we have a health tech forum, we have a women in tech forum, and a consultant to product forum. These are ways for you to bring your problems to a common group and hear from other founders who may have come across the same problems, who may have similar experiences, or may even be able to provide the solution for you. As an early stage founder, you will need ways to access tools and software at a cheaper rate, and we've worked with partners to ensure that you can get the services you need now for a fraction of the regular pricing. And Engine Shed itself is a great place to just come and meet people. You can meet informally in the business lounge, but there are also bookable private meeting rooms available for our members. Our workshops are available to you as a founder, but also to your founding team, and as your company grows, your staff. This will enable you to learn what you need to know to run the business. The workshops cover a range of topics from fundamental business knowledge in market research, business planning, finance, and things like investor readiness, but also broader knowledge that you need to know as you grow your business. For example, developing and maintaining culture within a team. The majority of our workshops are not mandatory. They are here for you to decide when is the best time for what you need to learn at the time you need it. This is very much your journey as a business founder. So you have the flexibility to do as many or as few workshops as you need, depending upon your capacity and where you are on your journey. And then within our broader network, there are also many other programs that run both across the SETsquared partnership and with our other external partners. For me, the core of the program and what really allows us to provide the bespoke support you need is this section. We have an incredible team of entrepreneurs in residence, and you'll hear from Annalisa in a moment about what EIRs do to support our membership. We also have our mentor pool, and these are all people who've maybe followed a similar journey to our founders. They can offer some of that knowledge and experience back to help you and your business. We have an incredible community of advisors who provide free in-residence slots for our founders so that you can get some real face-to-face time with lawyers, with accountants or patent attorneys before having to contract on specific tasks. We even have investors, chief technical officers, chief operating officers, and now AI advisors in residence who can provide you with the support in shaping your business. And finally, each of our full members get a panel of advisors from across our network, and we ensure that the panels we put together are the most relevant people for your business so that you can get the right advice and access to the people who can connect you into the most relevant networks. These business review panels are invaluable and really give the experience of how to manage a relationship with key senior advisors. So it's a comprehensive model of support, and it's always evolving. Now, there is a cost for membership. However, the support is heavily subsidized, so it's accessible to all of our founders, with us passing on around a third of the actual cost for the support provided to companies. If you are pre-revenue, you may even qualify for our startup rate. We also have our breakthrough bursary, which supports tech founders from a minority ethnic background, and that covers 75% of the startup fees for the first year of membership and 3 months of free co-working space. For those who haven't visited Engine Shed before, here are some pictures, maybe to tempt you to come down and meet with us. So, are you ready? Do you have a technology-based business? i.e., you've got something that maybe nobody else has got that you can build your business around? And what I'm talking about there is it defensible? We work with companies both pre-incorporation through our pre-incubation program, and we work with more established businesses through our full incubation programs. You've got ambitions and expectations that you can grow big, that you can make a big impact. And that may be a financial impact. It may be a big impact in other ways. You should have thought about what it will realistically take to get your company to the next stage. Not only the financial needs of the company, but also the risks involved with taking a business idea forward. You must be willing to listen. This for us is absolutely key. We probably all know intrinsically that we don't know everything, but we're looking for our founders to be ready to learn, to take on the advice, to take on the help that we can provide. And finally, you're looking for a home. One of our founders recently said that coming to SETsquared Bristol allowed them to find their tribe and the people who became their family whilst they started their entrepreneurial journey. We are a community. We are a home for startups. So if that's something you want, then hopefully we might be the right place for you. For those who may be thinking that they're not ready for full incubation, then we also have other types of support programs, from our short courses for prospective founders who may not yet have taken the first step on their entrepreneurial journey, to those wanting to discover whether their ideas could be a business, and to those who have the idea but need some support in launching their new venture. If any of these programs are of interest, then please do let us know. Contact us via email, drop onto our website, and we can arrange a follow-up chat to discuss these programs further with you. This is our team, and we also are currently recruiting for a 4th entrepreneur in residence to join our team. But what I'd like to do is, in the top corner of those 4 pictures on the right is Annalisa, and I'd like to hand over now to Annalisa to tell you a little bit about the role and her day job as an entrepreneur in residence here at SETsquared Bristol.
Thanks, Rick. Hello, everyone. If anyone can turn their camera on, and you've not got it on at the moment, I'd love to see your smiling faces. Makes such a difference. Ah, there you are. Lovely. Some nice smiling faces there. So thank you for listening to me. I think I've got just under 10 minutes for this, so I'll keep a close eye and ask the SETsquared team to move me on if they need to. I've been an entrepreneur in residence at SETsquared Bristol for 2 years, and I can't believe it's been 2 years, but it's absolutely flown. I came to Bristol slightly on the post-COVID wave, although I will maintain that it was always the plan. So yeah, two years ago. And in that time, I've got to know lots of businesses through SETsquared, of course, but through the wider ecosystem in Bristol. Are you all based in Bristol? Let me know. Put your hands up, put it on the chat. I'd love to know. Yeah, so you kind of already probably know that SETsquared has this sort of space sort of at the centre. I mean, partly that's because of Engine Shed being so central, I think. But also I think it's just a lovely meeting place for lots of different businesses to come to. So I've met lots of SETsquared businesses, but also businesses that are elsewhere in the ecosystem, and been able to start to make some of those connections between the two. Rick mentioned there the different entrepreneurs in residence, and we all bring something a little bit different. My background for my sins was in consulting. So for a long time, I've been sort of very hesitant to mention that in public, that I was a management consultant. But I've realized that first career I had, working with very big management consultancies and working with the very top teams of big regulated organizations like banks, insurance companies, energy companies, water companies, was tremendously helpful to what I do today. So gave me a lot of the ability to work with leadership teams, to work with strategy, with ambitious businesses, and it also gave me that network. And I'm finding increasingly that I'm able to connect the tech startups that I meet at SETsquared back into that old network. When I'm not, and I still work with some of those really big businesses now, I have a portfolio of work that I do, and that's really encouraged for entrepreneurs in residence. SETsquared don't want us to be in the building 5 days a week. We're there 1 day a week. My day's Thursday. So I'll be down tomorrow. I'll be back to back with SETsquared businesses. I think I've got 7 lined up tomorrow, 7 completely different businesses that I'll be advising. But really importantly, what I'm drawing on to advise those businesses is what I do on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So on those days, I'm working with organisations like the University of Cambridge and the Postdoc Academy there, where I meet lots of sort of mid-career researchers who are looking to commercialise their research. I work with the Royal Academy of Engineering on their SHOT scale-up programme. So that's businesses that are sort of Series A, Series B. I teach the governance module to that, which is way more exciting than you might think. And even Series B businesses are struggling to to put really good, really effective governance that is going to help them grow their businesses in place. I am a mentor on 3 different Techstars programs. So Techstars is really the largest global early stage VC, pre-seed VC. Techstars take a certain amount of equity in a business, but in return, you get access to a 12-week program that often fit quite earlier on in the journey. And I meet through that a very good network of mentors. What else do I do? I've got my own portfolio of startups that I've invested in and that I advise, that I sit on the board of, or that I chair the board of, or that I help build advisory boards around. And because of that, I have lots of mentors quite keen to know me because they want to be connected and matched with startups that I know. And that's good for SETsquared businesses, because SETsquared businesses want to get access to lots of really great mentors, really great talent around them. Just came off a call today with one of the businesses that I advise, that's a green hydrogen business that's based in Boston and preparing for their Series B. And that meeting was all about what are the metrics, what are the KPIs we should be starting to put in place now, having just closed our Series A, that's going to make sure that we're on track for our Series B. So, you know, I spend lots of time with different sizes of business, from the very, very early mid-career academic through to Series B businesses. And again, that helps me to be a good EIR. Having other good EIRs also helps me to be a good EIR. There's a healthy competition, I would say, between us, Rick, wouldn't you? Yeah, always making sure that we are getting the prizes for adding the most value to startups. Very happy to call each other friends and share notes amongst ourselves, and make suggestions of moving startups around as well, if we feel that the other EIR could be more valuable, either for one meeting or for the relationship going forward. What else should I mention just in terms of my portfolio? I think that just another thing that's quite interesting is that both Rick and I are involved as lecturers at various universities, but also in thought leadership on new topics surrounding startups. And partly that's because we're meeting so many startups on a weekly basis. We can start to see some of the challenges, some of the sort of hotspot areas, and we want to move the whole ecosystem forward a little bit. And in this role, you sort of have the opportunity to do some of that. So hot topic for me, as I mentioned a moment ago, is around governance. So trying to get really good governance matches for early stage startups. I think it's something that's really well done for later stage businesses. And I think it's something that has been done badly for early stage startups. SETsquared's got a bit of a legacy of recommending really good ways to go about governance. And that's been there right from the start of the program. I've not seen it in any other incubator that I work in or any other accelerator. And I think it's a really good indicator of the fact that SETsquared is leading in building businesses. So you can go to lots of different places to get lab space, or you can go to lots of different places to even get purely investor ready and have a really polished pitch. But in terms of being ready to start to build the foundations of your business, to start to hire the right people, to start to build the board around you, to start to prepare not your pitch for investment, but your business for investment, to try to get yourselves ready for both taking those funds and using them. That's where I see SETsquared stands apart. You know, maybe that feels a little bit geeky to you. It doesn't to me. It feels like we're building proper businesses, not SaaS businesses. We do have some SaaS businesses on the books, but mainly we are operating in the tech and deep tech space. With my remaining minutes, I thought it might be interesting for me to just tell you a little bit about a couple of the businesses that I work with here at SETsquared. So, I mean, I could, I think about 20 that are assigned to me. As I said, so that's a Thursday, and I usually have back-to-back advisory sessions, usually 7 or 8 on a Thursday, and then on a Friday I lie down. No, then on Friday I have to try to stay alert. But it's a full-on day, but I absolutely love it. But to give an example of just even some that you've seen on the video there, so you saw Ben from Drift Energy on that video when you watch it back. One of the things I have done recently for Ben would be one of Rick's SETsquared portfolio businesses, but I was able to chair the business review panel for Drift Energy, and that's a 2-hour session where the team brought together a brilliant group of 4 panelists from the database that we've got, representing finance, legal, the market, which was obviously in the clean energy space, and also growth. So someone's got really good experience of growing businesses, and we were able to put those fine minds onto Ben's top 3 killer questions. And I think it was a few months ago, and he's pretty much recovered now. And it definitely gave Rick plenty to work with him afterwards. I think that BRP is really a bit of a jewel in the crown of SETsquared. Again, it's not something I've seen done anywhere else, and I absolutely love chairing them. They're always a challenge, and always move the business and probably all the panelists forward. We mentioned Joyanne, that Joyanne has done so well in making us all more aware of inclusive marketing, helping Joyanne to understand what a first product could be for a particular new market that she was going into. That would have been the nature of some of those early sessions, and then working with Rick latterly on pricing for those. How do I actually make sure that we construct this business in a way that's going to generate the right kind of margins? Kaz from SoulSense was mentioned. In that case, my time with Kaz just last week was to prepare for how to spend the grant funding that we are 100% sure is about to land on the first pilot. So what talent do we need around the business? How are we going to scope for that? What partners will she need on board? Another one, we saw Tom from Shelf Conscious. With Tom, that was about they're a very well established business generating significant revenue already. How could we shape those commercial discussions for growth? How could we start to adopt and grow into other areas of that organization that Tom is already doing well in? These are just a few examples. I've got probably 20 more that I'm happy to tell you about. Do feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. I'll put my connection in the chat, and really happy to answer any other further questions. But I hope that gives you a flavour of what it is to be an EIR at SETsquared. It's a privileged position. Back to you, Rick.
Thanks very much, Annalisa. Without further ado, I'd like to pass us over now to Alex from Optect to tell us about your experience of working with us.
Thank you very much, Rick. And hi, good afternoon, everyone. So as with many things in my life, my entry into SETsquared wasn't very orthodox. My company at the time was called Tether, and we just won an award, TIAC award, which was a program set up by Facebook and involved BT and other big companies in the telecoms industry. And the idea was that we would collaborate with BT on a project. And in that first technical meeting we had with BT, it became clear that what BT really needed was for us to break the laws of physics. And at the time, my engineering team wasn't as strong as it is now, and we weren't able to pull that off. So both teams, us and BT, limped along for the remainder of that year-long program, desperately trying to find something that we could call success between the two of us. And at the end of it, a very nice person from Facebook recognized that we hadn't been able to get as much benefit from that program as they would have liked. And so they'd offered us a year's subscription to SETsquared. And to be honest, at the time, we weren't looking for another accelerator. I'd already been through one that was designed, one in London called the Centre for Entrepreneurs, which is a brilliant program if you have no entrepreneur experience at all and teaches you about the basics. I've been through that, and then went through another accelerator program that was looking at how to fundraise, how to build that perfect pitch deck. And I'd already started to see the same talks again and again. So for me, it wasn't necessarily something I was looking for. And my new business partner, Matthias, had just been through Entrepreneur First in London. And that program was about going big or going home. That wasn't necessarily what Matthias was looking for. And he hadn't heard of SETsquared Bristol. So we weren't particularly actively looking for a new program. But there were two things that convinced us to accept. The first one was that I just moved back to Bath and I didn't have a network in the area. So SETsquared Bristol was a way for me to meet other entrepreneurs and to start networking in the community. The other thing that convinced us was that we found out that it was competitive. We weren't necessarily guaranteed a place. So being told we weren't necessarily allowed in made us really want to get in. So we applied and we were very fortunate to join the program. And long story short, it was a great decision for us. My top 5 benefits are the following. So the first, in order of least important to most important, the first benefit that we got from the program was that it helped us to find funding opportunities. So I think it's a really small part for many people, but it was a list that they publish regularly of the different grants and funding opportunities across Britain. And I think on at least 2 occasions, we wouldn't have seen these opportunities had it not been for that list. And so we applied and we won those grants. So we'd already, from that, we were already grateful for joining the program. Second benefit was that they have these commercial partner deals. And if they're relevant to you, they can be really good value. So I think one of them gives you £100,000 worth of free for Amazon Web Services. So if you need that type of thing, then that's another great reason to join the program. The third that we found that we don't really have proof for, but we suspect played quite a big role for us, was being able to say that we are part of SETsquared. And when you put that on certain applications, it gets you through the first step of assessment. So they already, because they can see the SETsquared brand on your application, they know that you're a certain quality based on the general quality of SETsquared businesses. So the fourth is networking events. And I have to say that I haven't been to anywhere near as much as I probably could have benefited from over the past few years. But the times I have gone have been very useful to us. So we've been working with someone else on the SETsquared program for the last 2 years. I met him on a boat going down the River Avon as part of a SETsquared event. We've also got 2 mentors who we met through one of the speed dating events. And one of those mentors, has actually invested in our business too. And the other one, both of them are brilliant mentors. And so that leads me to the 5th most important thing for us, which has been the quality of the advice that we've had through SETsquared. Now, as soon as you put CEO on your LinkedIn profile, you will have business mentors breaking the doors down to have a conversation with you. And it's really easy to find business mentors, but it's really difficult to vet them when you don't know what you're vetting them for. And I've definitely had mentors in the past where it hasn't been a good deal for us in the end. There's nothing worse than bad advice, because bad advice takes you in completely the wrong direction. If you're asking the way to Scotland and you end up in France, you're in a worse place than when you were at the start. So having lots of really high quality advisors available that have been vetted is really, really helpful. And as I alluded to, we are not the most conventional team. So the thing that impressed me the most, Rick was our entrepreneur in residence, was that Rick was able to help us build what we wanted to build. And we weren't looking to be a traditional startup, or there's probably no such thing, but we weren't looking to necessarily do things the way everyone else does them. And Rick was very patient with us as we went through quite a crazy journey. So I will now tell you about that journey, because on my brief, they asked me to tell everyone where we are now and where we were at the start. So our mad story is that we arrived at SETsquared after that program with BT with around 30,000 left in the bank. We didn't really have a good product market fit. We had a messed up cap table. I had a new founder, so a new business partner effectively. And really we just had some IP. Not long into the program, we were fortunate to find an application for the IP that was quite promising. It was wildfire detection in power line corridors. The downside of that application was that our total list of customers globally was 3 companies. And by that point, we'd also spent most of the 30,000 exploring other possible applications of the IP. So at the time, nearly out of money, I called up someone I knew who was a serial entrepreneur and said, I've got the really, really good new business partner, one of the best technical co-founders I think I could have possibly found. Is there anything that we can do to help your business that would also give us some cash to survive? And fortunately there was. He asked us to design an electronic toothbrush as part of one of the businesses he was working on. So you can imagine the conversations with Rick. The first one involved sort of, yeah, we're building a wildfire detector and an electronic toothbrush. Luckily, that consultancy project went well, and they gave us a couple of more contracts in different things. One was in machine learning, so another new topic that we're looking at, but we were surviving. And then we were very fortunate to win an Innovate UK project. And the only downside of that project was that we then needed to match fund 30% of the project. And the consultancy fees probably weren't going to cut it. Now, by pure coincidence, around that time, someone called us up from a company in the States, and they'd just become the largest supplier of autonomous vehicles to the US military. And they asked us if we could revive the stuff we'd been doing with BT to create covert secure communication links for their autonomous vehicles that couldn't be jammed or hacked. And Matthias and I had deep discussions about whether this was the right thing to do. But the money that came with that idea was 100% funded. We'd get to keep the IP, and that would mean that we could match fund the Innovate UK project on the wildfire detection system. Now, in some hardware projects, you can get away with attaching pre-existing modules together, sellotaping everything up, putting a few cables, doing a little bit of software, and meeting the project requirements. Unfortunately, the area that we were working on, free space optics, wireless laser-based communication systems, wasn't very mature. And so there weren't these modules we could just strap together, which effectively meant we had to build an entire system to meet this project. And we were doing the same thing on a fire detection device as well. And I think a lot of people would have said, it's way too much. And we knew it was way too much, but we didn't feel like we had a choice. And so we took that contract, and we were persuaded because we felt the technology was so risky that there was a good chance that project would be the end of it. It wouldn't go anywhere. And then we could get back to focusing on what we really wanted to build, which was a company around wildfire detection. Of course, that didn't go to plan. The technology actually ended up working quite well, and then Russia invaded Ukraine, and all of a sudden the technology we were working on became a hot topic across multiple sectors of the military. And we also, our business development guy had been doing a really good job for us. We hadn't paid him a penny, but we'd offered him shares in the company, and he had started to get us in with some big defense primes. So it was difficult. You can imagine the meetings we had with Rick. Rick was saying, so, what do you guys want to do? How do you want to structure a company? Do you want to be a consultancy? Do you want to sell the IP? And we said, well, to be honest, Rick, we really don't know. We're just happy to be alive, which wasn't particularly helpful. So, I mean, I can't imagine a more challenging situation for an entrepreneur in residence than advising us. And we gradually worked out that what we really wanted to do was to sell products. That to us felt like the best way to build what we wanted, which was something that gave us recurring revenue, and at some point a really fancy optoelectronics laboratory somewhere in the mountains in Europe. And we also felt we couldn't let either concept go. So we ended up splitting the company into two, one that's building wildfire detection and one that's building secure communication technology for the military. And we structured the fire detection business to be as lean as we possibly can. We've hired really experienced people. And on the military company, we've made it really agile. So we can tune up the work when there's contracts there and tune it down when there aren't. It's still fairly crazy, and we understand that. But I think that's sort of partly what entrepreneurship's about. And that's really what we wanted to do. And we've always felt very supported by SETsquared and by Rick in building the vision. And I can definitely say that we are now sort of 2-3 years on in a much better position than we were at the start. We've got two pretty valuable companies. One of them has just raised a decent sized investment round and is nearly in market. So that's my pretty out their story. And if you have any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. You probably also get a flavour there of why those of us who work for SETsquared enjoy working for SETsquared, because we get to work with, frankly, off-the-wall people like Alex who present impossible challenges, and we work our way through them. Just before we go to the Q&A, I was going to say, I'm going to introduce Sophie, and she's just popped up on screen magically. It's wonderful when technology works. And Sophie is going to lead us through the Q&A session. Over to you, Sophie.
I say I'm always on time. Hi, everybody. I'm Sophie. I'm our events and programs coordinator. What that means is I have responsibility for coordinating a lot of the activities across programs. This is sort of activities such as our workshops, our networking events, roundtables, and the list goes on. I'm taking us into the Q&A today. There is no question too small, so please put them in the chat. Whether it's for Alex about his experience of the business, or whether it's a broader question for the entrepreneurs in residence, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll be going through as they come up. In the meantime, while I wait for you to think about your amazing questions, I've got a few of our own. So for either EIR, sort of how long do companies usually stay with SETsquared?
Yeah, it's how long is a piece of string? I think we can give you the mathematical average, which I think at the moment is about 2.5 to 3 years. We've got 80 odd companies in the program, but it really varies. I worked with a medical devices company that was with us for nearly 14 years. They predate my time in the centre, but that's because medical device regulation and clinical trials takes an awfully long time and a lot of money. And we've had some software businesses which have experienced fantastic growth in 6 months and left the program because they're preparing themselves for sale to a bigger entity. So it really does vary, but I think mathematically it's about 2.5 years, but it's for as long as you get value from the program.
Great, thanks, Rick. So this is probably a question for the EIRs again. Sort of working closely with the companies, we've got quite a combination of resident businesses that have desks and offices, and we have businesses that work in the lounge and come in a few days a week, but we also have companies that work remotely from all across the country. Sort of Annalisa, how do you see the differences in how they engage with the program, and how do you find the experience of sort of remote versus in person?
You know, the remote work is why I asked straight away anyone in Bristol, because I make sure I go down to the centre every Thursday. And, you know, even if I am on the phone, on the Zoom call for much of that day, I'm still there, because there's always good stuff that comes from just being in that shared space. I think we lost a lot of that. I think we worked down the cultural capital during COVID, and I think we're all just starting to build it back up again now. And I think that's really important. Of course, we've all become very good at working on Zoom and can absolutely be productive on Zoom. What I have noticed recently is more of my businesses are booking in for longer sessions. So I've had quite a few 2 or even 3 hour sessions with some of my businesses now, so that we can get into deeper aspects of the strategy around the growth plan, or perhaps around the product design, or broader service design. And of course, that's the kind of work that you can best do on one of the big whiteboards in person.
Thank you very much. We have got a question from the chat, which is asking how they submit their application to join SETsquared. Does anybody feel confident, or would everybody like me to take it?
Oh, knock yourself out, Sophie. Go for it.
Absolutely. Well, you can find our application form on the website, which will be on the screen in big, or if one of our lovely helpers can pop it in the chat. Usually our application process is you fill in a form, then our incubation manager and pre-incubation manager can review that, and then they get back to you, and it's through an interview process after that point.
It's possibly worth reflecting with Alex as well. It is a competitive program. We have a certain capacity. And in fact, one of my favorite companies that I've worked with during my 11 years failed to get in first time and went away and reworked their business proposition and their customer engagement plan and reapplied 6 months later and got in that time. So it's not a one-shot deal as well.
Yeah, Alex, how did you find your application process to joining SETsquared, if you remember?
I don't remember it that clearly, but I do remember it as being competitive, fairly efficient. There are some application processes which involve huge reams of paperwork, and we do them quite regularly, but this wasn't one of them. I think it was, I think we felt as though SETsquared understood who we were pretty quickly and what the idea was pretty quickly, which is nice. And they also felt very kind at saying no. So if they had turned us down, it would have been a very nice no, and we'd have got some useful pointers on how to come back with something better.
I think, yeah, it's the interview. We do try to, because, you know, Rick set out the pricing there. You know, we know that we have to add a lot of value too. So I definitely see that interview as a two-way thing. But what that means is that in that interview, the startup is often getting perhaps some of that live coaching that they weren't necessarily expecting when they came on, and they can sort of go away looking a bit shell-shocked. But yeah, usually they do still want to proceed with the application, which is good.
We've had a question from Mo that asks, is it possible to arrange a brief one-to-one before meeting? If everyone doesn't mind, I'll take this one. We do prefer that you go through the application process because, as Annalisa said, the interview itself is a two-way street. So it's for you to ask as many questions and for you to understand as well. So we do prefer you go through the application process because it means we don't lose anybody and everybody stays in a neat flow. We've also had a question from Tony asking if we can help with funding prior to joining SETsquared. Do either of the EIRs want to take that one?
That's a more tricky one. So SETsquared itself, we don't fund any businesses. We don't take a stake in businesses. That also helps us to remain independent, means our advice is purely for the benefit of the business. We don't have any conflict of interest because we're part ownership. But what we do have, of course, is a fantastic network. So Alex mentioned we have contacts into the grant funding bodies. We work alongside some of them on certain programs, especially at the SETsquared partnership level. So even just looking at our website, you'll find other resources. Look at the SETsquared Bristol and the SETsquared partnership website, and you'll find resources to other sources of funding. You'll also find lots of blogs, news, posting of events across the network. So we often find that people who talk to us for the first time have been stalking us on our website, maybe for 6 months or a year, and using the information on there to get ready to apply. So please do that. And then the other thing I'll mention is we are out in the Bristol ecosystem at various meetups and community events all of the time. And if you see me at an event, come and bend my ear, please do. Come and introduce yourself. And if there's anything in my head that's useful to you, I will happily share it. Or I will pass you on to someone else at the networking event who's more relevant to you at that point.
You also mentioned, Tony, that you're connected to the University of Bristol, where you'll find a tremendous amount of entrepreneurship support. There were the pre-incubation programs mentioned earlier that you'd get access to, and same with anyone who's connected to a university or research institute. That would be a good place to go as a pre coming to the incubator here.
Thank you very much. We have under 10 minutes remaining, so if anybody has any remaining questions, please keep putting them in the chat. But in the meantime, Alex, what is the worst piece of advice you have received?
Rick ever gave you?
The worst piece of advice. It's really obvious to me, actually. And it's slightly embarrassing because I took it. So we were assigned a mentor for our business when I was on one accelerator program, and he came highly recommended, mostly by himself, but he was also the head mentor of the program at the time. So we didn't really have any reason to not take advice. But the advice that we were given was to wait for this one investor to give us the decision. So we pitched a very wealthy individual who said they wanted to back our business and they wanted to be the sole investor. And we decided to listen. So we pitched to him. He said, brilliant, I'll see you next week. You can give me some more information and then we'll go ahead with the deal. And this week turned into 2 weeks, which then turned into about 4 months. And at the end of it, he, and this doesn't happen as well. So this is a strange story, but he actually took our business idea and then paid someone else to set it up. And he didn't invest in the business. And so, I mean, it was catastrophic advice. And I knew that at the time, because we'd been through this training program that basically taught me not to do that. But because this mentor was the head mentor, and I thought maybe he knows our business differently. Maybe he knows that this is a particular scenario where you might break the rules. So I listened, and it cost us 4 months. I wasn't particularly attached to that business idea, so I'm not too sad about that. And yeah, pretty bad advice, I think.
Thanks, Alex. A question for the EIRs. Would an EdTech platform selling strategy toolkits be eligible and meet the tech business selection criteria?
Oh, I'm tempted to say, what do you think, Annalisa? But I'll offer a first answer. It really depends. What we mean by a tech business is that the tech is a differentiator, is essential to your growth. The deeper the tech, the more defensible it generally is. If you've got some deep science or deep hardware tech and you can get patents, it's more defensible. You might not be able to, as a startup, afford to defend it, but if you're looking for an exit, whoever buys you can. If you are, and I pick my words carefully, more just software based, it can be harder to defend. Of course, you can protect your source code, etc. But the defensibility isn't just about the tech, it's about how you use the tech. Again, a company I worked with in SETsquared a few years ago, I could use the phrase was just an app, but they had a unique approach to the marketplace and they had some great contacts in the marketplace, and they were able to carve out a significant market share very, very quickly. So when inevitably somebody else came and did copy their tech, they were a small percentage compared to the company that I was working with, and they maintained that lead by continuing to develop that software. So although it wasn't patentable, although some people would have said there's no deep tech there, they were using that tech to secure the market, and it was about the whole business play. So although we put emphasis on this label of high tech, it also depends upon the whole story.
Thanks, Rick. We have 1 minute left of the Q&A, so I will hit Annalisa with the last question of how mature does an organisation need to be to apply?
I'm going to answer it in the same way I wanted to answer the last one, which is, if you are on this call because you believe that SETsquared is going to add value to your business, I want to tell you to apply. I really do, because I can't think of many application processes that don't move startups forward, that don't move your thinking forward. And also, there's no way I'm going to sit here and tell any entrepreneur that they can't have something that they want. It's your job to go get it. So that's how I'm going to answer the question. Make your case. It won't be a waste of time because it's helping you to make your case, which will always be valuable. And we'd be delighted to hear from you. Well, and you know, it's just about finding the right match then, but the best you can do as an entrepreneur is make your case.
Thank you, Annalisa. I'm going to hand us back to Rick now to close us out.
Well, yes, thank you everybody who's attended the call. Thanks for the questions, and I hope that we've helped tell you a little bit more about SETsquared and the program. I'm also going to end with an advert. So one of the things that we also do as SETsquared is we have an outreach program into the wider community, and you can find details on our website, but we have an event that we call Idea to Pitch, and this is specifically working with earlier stage ventures who maybe are not yet ready to apply to the full program. And it's a free event, free to attend. You can come along, you can hone your business idea, and you can practice communicating that business idea with other people. And the next version, the next rollout of that is on Wednesday, the 11th of October. and that will be taking place in Barton Hill here in Bristol. So anybody who wants to connect, anybody who's thinking about bringing an idea to market, that could be a great start point. Otherwise, on behalf of SETsquared Bristol, thank you all very much for your participation in this call, and I look forward hopefully to meeting some, many, or maybe even all of you sometime in the future. Thank you very much.